Hi, sweeties. Welcome to Sweet Savant. I'm Demetra. Let's talk about the CDC warning that came out a few days ago that warned against a salmonella outbreak linked to Italian style meats. Ooh, you hate to hear it, but they have two separate instances in which they have identified people that have gotten sick. I should say two different outbreaks in which people have identified getting sick after eating Italian style meats, like with your charcuteries or your sub sandwiches. This outbreak is over 17 states, 36 different illnesses, but thankfully, no deaths at this point. The CDC recommends that you heat your Italian style meats to at least 165 degrees to kill off those pathogens. Now, the thing is that you can't tell if your food is spoiled just by looking at it. You don't know. Does it have salmonella? Does it not? I don't know. So we're going to play it safe. And I'm going to show you some ways that you can have your Italian style meats, heat them, and still enjoy them, because you don't really want to have boiled prosciutto. Maybe. We're going to see. We're going to find out. But first, please subscribe to Sweet Savant. Hit that thumbs up, that notification bell, and let's get into this Italian style meats video. Now, I'll put a link to this information in the description box, but it has what you need to know, people at high risk, and they describe what high risk is. And this is Italian style meat, so like prosciutto, salami, but not limited to that. So other meats too, that you'd find in your antipasta type salads. And it shows what the symptoms are, what you should look for, symptoms of salmonella. But check that out. But let's talk about what you can do, how you can heat your meats to safely to 165 degrees. It says, or until steaming hot if you are at higher risk. So let's talk about what we can do to get these meats steaming hot. We're going to start with some thinly sliced prosciutto, some cooked spaghetti, a little peeled and deveined shrimp, a little red pepper flakes, depending on how hot you like it, some fresh garlic cloves, some spinach leaves, a little splash of white wine, olive oil, and some fresh cherry tomatoes and fresh basil out from my kitchen garden. We'll toss a little olive oil in the pan and season up our shrimp with my, my special Sweet Savant seasoned salt. I'll put the link to that in the description box, and get that saute. They don't need very long to cook at all. Drop a little garlic, chopped garlic, little red pepper flake in there, and your pre-washed spinach leaves. I mean, this recipe goes together so fast. Like, cooking the pasta is the most time-consuming thing of this whole dish. You can use whatever kind of pasta you like to. A splash of that white wine. You want something nice and acidic with an alcohol content of about 12 or 13%. And check the description box for the complete recipes. And now our prosciutto, we'll just tear a little bit. It's already very thinly sliced. We'll tear it up so it can get nice and all through that pasta dish. We'll toss in our cooked spaghetti, and you can use whatever kind of pasta shape you like. If you have some bow tie pasta, a little farfalle, maybe a little orecchiette, whatever you like, you can just toss in there. And like I said, the pasta is the most time-consuming part. Cooking the pasta is the most time-consuming part of this whole recipe. Now we will add in just a little splash of heavy cream and stir that around. Nice and creamy texture, not too much. Not too much, just enough to make a little bit of a sauce. The cream will thicken pretty quickly. Just simmer for a few seconds, and now we'll toss in our fresh sliced cherry tomatoes and our fresh torn basil right at the end of the dish. And I grew those out in my little raised bed kitchen garden. I'll put a link to that in the description box as well if you're interested in doing a little gardening. Raised bed gardening saves the back. Look at that. We're done. We're done already. pour yourself a little glass of wine if you imbibe. You know, the same wine we used in the pasta is the same wine we're drinking. A little bit of that Mary J. Blige's Sun Goddess is very, very tasty. And dinner is done. Dinner is done and our prosciutto is heated to above 165 degrees. For our next dish, we're going to use some salami, and I'm using a stick salami that will chop up garlic, a little red bell pepper, some onion, some diced tomatoes, dried tortellini, a little broccoli, chopped broccoli, and spinach, a little cheese tortellini. Oh, and let's grab a Parmesan rind. Yeah, if you've got a rind of Parmesan to add to a soup like this, simmer it for a bit, it brings so much flavor. Some chicken broth and a little bit of tomato paste. Let's get that salami diced up, and the salami already has plenty of salt. It's got some big peppercorns in there, so it's going to add a lot of flavor to our final dish, our soup. So we're going to watch the salt that we add to this dish. Get that diced up and ready to go. And we're going to treat this kind of like we would, say, a dried chorizo, and saute it a little bit with our onions. So we get a little olive oil in our pan, add in our onions, add in our sweet red bell peppers, and our chunks of salami. And this little bit of sauteing around with the aromatics helps to draw some of the flavors out of the salami and into that oil, into the kind of the base of the flavors for our soup. Add that chopped garlic. We're going to add in a little bit of tomato paste, and I like to use these tubes of tomato paste because they last a long time in the fridge. And the tomato paste adds a nice bit of body to the soup, but you do want to cook it out a little bit before you go on to your next step. Now we'll add a large can of diced tomatoes and stir that around. Let that simmer to extract the flavors of the salami even further. Add in some chicken broth. I love the flavors of chicken broth and tomato together. And this is a store-bought chicken broth that I picked up the other day. And now that Parmesan rind, yes. Parmesan, it just adds that sort of umami feeling, taste in, oh, it's so good. So don't throw out that Parmesan rind. Let it, drop it in a soup or a pasta sauce and let it simmer down and pull out any of those flavors. Simmer it until it gets a little bit wilty. So this is when it sort of first goes in. And then after simmering for about 10 minutes, let's fish out that Parmesan rind and see what it looks like. Look at that. See how it's sort of wilted? It's given all it's got. It's given all it's got to our soup. So now we'll go ahead and add our dried tortellini. Now you can pre-cook your tortellini if you like. I'm going to use the dried tortellini straight from the bag into the soup and let it hydrate. This is a little cheese tortellini, just off the shelf. And you can use a more of a fresh refrigerated tortellini product if you find it, if you prefer, in your grocery store. It just takes a little less cooking. So I checked for seasoning, and instead of adding straight up salt, I'm going to add a little bit of Knorr chicken bouillon, which is just one of my favorite flavoring agents. So even if I'm using chicken broth, like a boxed or a fresh chicken broth, a homemade chicken broth, I'll still add a little bit of that powdered Knorr chicken bouillon. I just love that, that boost of flavor it gets. Now we can add in some vegetables. We have some chopped broccoli, some spinach. We still had some spinach left over from our earlier dish. Kale would be great in here, some chopped kale. We let that simmer down, and it took about 10 minutes for our tortellini to be finished. And we'll tear in some fresh garden basil at the end of our dish here, and we're done. We're done. Let's grab a bowl and serve up some of this delicious soup. Those big chunks of salami in there have simmered, given their flavors, given all that's got to our soup, and it's gotten to above 165 degrees, as the CDC has warned us, for those immunocompromised folks if needed. But honestly, this soup is just delicious, and I highly recommend that you try it. It's good. Give it a try. Oh, delicious. Y'all go visit the CDC website. I'll put a link in the description box so you can stay up to date on any further warnings or updates about this outbreak. Well, I hope you found that information helpful. If you are immunocompromised and you feel like, I need to go ahead and check out what the CDC is saying about Italian meats, then you'll want to heat it to above 165 degrees. And it's a good idea to follow the CDC on Twitter, because you can always be up to date just in case there are any recalls or foodborne illnesses that you need to know about it. Stay aware, stay safe. Please subscribe to Sweet Savant. Hit that thumbs up. Oh, follow me on Twitter too. I'll put links in the description box. Oh yeah, subscribe to Sweet Savant. Hit that thumbs up, that notification bell, and y'all have a delicious day.